Welcome back. In this last video, in this series at least, I'm going to show you what I use as my daily driver as long as I'm working in the terminal, which is usually most of my time. I'm either in the terminal or browsing, and that's pretty much most of my time when I'm working with a computer. And the reason why I want to show this is one, I just want to show you the power that you have through the terminal alone, that you don't need to think of the terminal as the past three videos. Terminals and terminal emulators and shells have gotten more and more advanced over time, and there's no reason to stick to the defaults. So Z shell is a good way of adding a lot of features. Switching to GPU-based terminal emulators is a great way of getting more color and improving performance. And in general, just think of the terminal as your friend, especially if you're going to be programming a lot, or if you're looking to be a software engineer. Now, you don't have to do all of this, and there are definitely exceptions where you probably don't want to use a terminal and you want to stick to a graphical interface. But again, it's just good to learn all of this. And again, if you don't want to look at this, you can feel free to. If you're a CS 322 student, you don't have to know this. This is not even part of the material that you would need to know. But again, it's just something useful that I found myself from time to time when I used to TA this class. I ended up just teaching it to a lot of the students. And in this quarter that I'm actually instructor, I just feel like it would be more useful if I do a video where I explain things somewhat more clearly. And again, anybody that is interested is able to watch the video. So first of all, I'm in a new terminal emulator. The previous videos, I just stuck to the Mac terminal app. This time I'm in Alacrity, and it's I can just share a link to it in the description. And the reason why I use Alacrity is one, it's a GPU-based terminal emulator. Another one is Kitty. You can feel free to use either, but the idea is that a lot of the rendering that's going on is going to be done on your GPU instead of the CPU. That means not only do you get a faster terminal emulator, you're also just not keeping your CPU as busy as you would normally have to if you're particularly if you're doing something complex. So I'm back in the remote server and I don't have that many files here. And I'm just doing this just to show you what I do when I start working on any new server. As long as I have the basic build tools, which are just tools you would need to compile stuff. So as long as there's build tools, there's Z shell and tmux on whatever server I'm using, which I can usually try to get, or if I have sudo, I can just install myself, or I can just request. As long as those dependencies are there, then everything else in my files is going to be either built from source or downloading binaries, which means the best part of all of this is I don't need sudo to set things up. All I need to do is an internet connection and clone my files. And once I clone my files, I will just go there and use make. And we already talked about make in class. And also in the labs, but I'm just using make as more of a quick recipe thing that just calls my install script. And then basically what's happening is I've both set up most of my dependencies as submodules to either open source repositories or my fork of those open source repositories. For instance, if I want to point a few things out, ARIA2 is just something that's a more advanced wget replacement. Not really wget, but it's an advanced downloading tool that lets you parallelize downloading large files that I tend to use sometimes. There's things like Fuzzy Finder, HTOP. HTOP just is a more fancy replacement for top that shows you real-time usage of the CPU and memory disk and network and so on. There's a lot of dependencies. I even build Vim from source because I need Vim 9 and I need a specific version of Vim. And while we didn't discuss submodules in detail in class, I'm just going to let all of this build because it's going to take a lot of time and just explain as it's doing stuff. So most of the dependencies that I have are I try to build most things as source, or if they're not too complicated of a tool that I can just download the binary files for, I just do that based on the operating system I'm on. And all of these are bash scripts, basically. My installer script is comprised of multiple subscripts that detect the operating system, detect the architecture, and based on those, they make decisions on first what to install and what not to install. Some things are even tools that I only use on my personal devices, like a PDF viewer, for instance. So I just want those to be built only on personal devices that meet certain criteria, and the rest is common amongst all of them. And again, the good thing about this is that I don't need sudo to do all of this. I can just build everything or download everything as I need it, completely rootless, and just set everything up for myself and not worry about anything else. There is a problem that doesn't come up very frequently, but at times that I'm not using SSH, at times that I'm just trying to configure a machine and connect to it via, I don't know, an HDMI cable or something like that. If I'm just connecting to like the onboard graphical chip, it might not, the fonts will be weird. There will be a lot of weirdness going on. And for that reason, I tend to just use Bash and not modify my bash setup as much. And so my default shell is C shell, which you've seen so far, but I do have the option to switch to bash, which doesn't have all the add-ons, and it's just I try to not modify bash as much so I can just use it everywhere, especially at times that I don't have a good terminal emulator, so to speak. And what just got installed was ncurses, or the curses library. It's just a terminal library that I would need to build my own Vim and so on. And some of the stuff actually happened pretty quickly because I've already set this up on this machine. So like my Vim was already built from source. So I'm just installing stuff that might have been removed, some of which I'm just skipping over. But again, this is a process that, I've set up so I know the ins and outs. So I'm familiar with what to install, what not to install, and so on. And now all I really have to do is pretty much everything's set up. So all I have to do is log out and log back in. But I'm just going to uh, start a new Z shell process. And this is my setup. This is my typical setup on any machine. And you can see first off, this looks a little bit fancier than your average, I don't know, command line prefix. It gives me my username, host name, and the path that I'm in. Not only that, if I go into any directory that's that's a Git repository, I also get the branch name, and the background is highlighted white if there are no changes made to this current version. If there are changes made, for instance, if I create a new file that's not tracked, it's going to specify that I have untracked changes, and it's just a useful indicator thing to have. Um, but what I really want to show is my tmux setup, which is even better. First off, you can see that the green bar in the previous video is gone. And by the way, the mode I'm in right now. One of the other reasons I love Alacrity is that by default, it does have Vim key bindings, which means you can specify a shortcut to get into a Vim mode. And I'm doing air quotes, but I don't know why because you can't see me. Anyways, the idea is you can get into a Vim mode on Alacrity, which gives you your typical Vim keys, which means you can, I don't know, do visual blocks. You can do visual blocks and visual lines. You can, and best part, when you yank anything, when you copy anything as if you would in Vim, it's actually copied into your clipboard. So I can easily copy information from my terminal if I need to. But yeah, the bar you see below is just my tmux bar that just gives me a little bit of information that I need on top of what session I'm in, what pane I'm in. And again, the best part is because I have my own tmux config, I've mapped the shortcuts that I need to again like keys like this, so I can just split windows, switch back and forth. I'm actually going to kill them because I have a shortcut for this. For W, it just divides everything into four panes in the current window that I'm in, and it opens up them in one of those. And I even have more shortcuts for do a four-way split and run these two specific programs and also change directories into this directory and enable this Anaconda environment, for example, something that I do very frequently. So again, the idea is automation, something that we discuss frequently in class. But another thing that I want to show is actually just my Vim config. You can also already see that it's very different from the Vim we saw in previous videos. And I actually have my own, I have a custom file explorer. It's called Vim or Vim File Manager. It's, as far as I understand, not part of the original Vim project. It's just its own open source project. And I have like a shortcut for that. And I can actually, there we go, set it to show my hidden files. I can set it to, it's one of the good features about it is that it can do um, like a split view. So um, I can have two splits at the same time, or I can switch views and switch to previews. So if I switch to previews, it'll show me a preview of the file I'm highlighting again with Vim keybind, so I can just move around, open up new files, and yeah, like I can do vertical splits very easily. Uh, what should I open next? Uh, Oh, I think I opened this. No, I did. So splits are very easy. There's a lot that I've set up here to just make my use of them really easy. So the way I actually use them is effectively the way I would use any IDE. It's just in the terminal, and it's pretty quick for my use. There are things that might slow your Vim down, and one of those is if you're on any operating system with a graphical interface, one of the first things that I know Mac does, I don't know if Ubuntu does this or not. Ubuntu probably doesn't do it, but I do know that Mac limits the number of times it repeats a key that you just keep on pressing and don't let go of per second. So once you modify that, your Vim is going to be a lot faster if you just hold on to a key. Of course, if you want to move around in Vim, you would do with Control F and Control B to move around page by page, or uh, I don't know, with curly brackets, you can move a couple lines. You can also move to like uh, jump to different sections of a page in Vim. Again, I'm not like the biggest Vim expert. I'm not even close, but the stuff that I do know already helps me a lot. And like again, it's the idea is that all of these tools are highly customizable. They're going to have their own config files that you can modify, and you can put all of this into a .files repository. You can keep it private or public, whichever way you're comfortable, and then clone it wherever you need and use it accordingly. Um, and like for instance, one of the things I find myself doing if I'm SSHing and I'm not and I'm, depending on my connection or whatever, if it's a little slow like this, one of the reasons is that I'm doing a row and column highlight that highlights a row and column where my cursor is. So I think I have CC disable that. Like that's just a shortcut, and now you can see it's a lot faster in moving around because it doesn't have to re-render all of this. And yes, there's plenty of colors. That's because again, the terminal emulator that I'm using and the processes that I'm using, including Tmux, including ZShell, all support higher bit colors. So it's not your standard 16-bit color, not 16-bit, but base 16 colors. Um, so so yeah, that's pretty much everything that I do. And one last thing that I would probably I'm just trying to think of other things to show, but there's a lot in my dot files, and obviously there's going to be a link of this in the description. You can just go around and look at it. There's some tools that are specific to Mac, some that are specific to Linux, but most of those are shared across my different devices. And again, this is not the most complicated dot files. It's not even close to a really good dot files, but it gets the job done for me, and that's all that matters. And you might end up creating your own with your, I don't know, own setup. You might not even like colors at all. And this is not even the most complicated my dot files have been, but at some point you're going to just add more features because you're excited, and at some point you're just going to get rid of a lot of those because you don't use them and they slow things down for you more than they help. So that's usually that could usually end up being the case for you. So I just wanted to do this video just to illustrate that not all terminal setups are alike, and you can keep it very simple, not change anything, or you can just change the stuff that you need. For instance, the thing that you can usually start with is just a vim config, and that's going to be in your .vimrc file in your home directory. And your vim config can do anything from importing plugins and setting true color support or I don't know, setting a custom color scheme. It can do anything from that all the way down to custom rules for different extensions, different file extensions, and so on. So it's really I'd say it's really useful probably if you're going to be using them a lot. And I have like two different configs at times for like Mac versus Linux. At times it's necessary. Again, there's a lot of tricks you can pull, but the point is that your dot files will uh, will boost your productivity, and you can basically clone and have them on any server that you end up connecting to and developing on. And again, doesn't have to be a server, it can be a Linux machine in your home that's your daily driver that you can just connect to wherever you go. Or it can be just your Mac. Again, I have the same setup on my Mac. I actually have a more complicated setup for doing two tmuxes at the same time because Alacrity, because it's a really stripped down, lightweight terminal emulator, um, it doesn't have even tab support. So you don't even get tabs in Alacrity, unlike Kitty, which does do tabs. And some of these terminal emulators can even view images. So you can even go as far as that. Um, but because Alacrity can't do tabs, I actually have a tmux within a tmux open, and that's why I have different tmux configs for Mac versus for my personal daily versus my Linux one, because I want to be able to have two tmuxes, one tmux within another tmux, and still have key bindings that don't conflict with each other. So this has been pretty much all I wanted to show, and feel free to browse around my dot files. Feel free to Google all of this, and feel free to ask me questions if you have any.